Jack is haunted by recurring dreams of a life he doesn't remember, a life from before the war, featuring a mysterious woman he feels deeply connected to. These dreams feel more like memories than mere figments of his imagination. In the present year of 2077, 5 years after a mandatory memory wipe, Jack is still plagued by these dreams. He and Victoria are assigned to Earth for a mission, which is set to be completed in 2 weeks, after which they can join the others. They are very different. Jack is curious and adventurous, while Victoria is not. Half a century ago, an alien species called the Scavengers decimated Earth's moon, causing catastrophic natural disasters like earthquakes and tsunamis. The invasion that followed left Earth in ruins. Humanity used nuclear weapons to win the war, but the planet was left mostly uninhabitable. The survivors built the T-EAT, a temporary space station, before migrating to Titan, one of Saturn's moons. Jack and Victoria stayed on Earth to protect the hydro rigs, which convert water to energy, crucial for humanity's survival. The remaining scavengers on Earth continue to disrupt their operations, attacking drones and Jack. Victoria is his communication officer, and he is tech support for the drones. She is excited to go to Titan, but Jack feels like Earth is still his home. Jack enters his vessel for his daily patrol. He engages all systems, checks with Victoria, and then lifts off. He confirms the visual of the hydro rigs when Victoria informs him that 2 drones are down. Mission control comes online, and Victoria establishes communication with T-EAT, informing Sally about the drones. She relays the information to Jack and links his vessel to its beacon. He follows it through a storm, but lightning strikes the vessel, causing him to lose control momentarily. Victoria tries to convince Mission Control that they need new parts for the drones. Their directive for the day is to fix drone 166 and find 172. Jack regains control just before crashing and arrives at the location of the first drone. Before landing, Victoria checks for scavenger activity but has limited visibility. Jack lands close to the drone, grabs his tools, and tells Victoria to watch his back. While he works on the drone and communicates with her, someone is watching him. Victoria warns that the drone can't be fixed, but Jack improvises using chewing gum and gets it working. Before the drone powers up, Victoria notices something on her monitors. Jack turns around to find a dog. He scares the dog away to prevent the drone from killing it. He gives the drone his ID, preventing it from engaging with him. The drone scans the area where people were watching and then blasts off. Jack takes a lunch break and talks to Victoria about the scavengers becoming bolder. She comments that once they leave, only dust and radiation will remain. Deciding to search for the second drone on the ground, Jack takes out his bike and rides through the desolate landscape where water once existed. He picks up a faint signal from the drone, but doesn't see it. He finds a sinkhole where he suspects the drone has fallen. Informing Victoria of his plan to go inside, she tells him that Tet will go offline in 15 minutes, leaving him on his own. Jack attaches a rope to his bike and climbs down. The scavengers continue to observe him from a distance. Victoria requests drone backup to his location. Jack carefully lowers himself, hearing and then seeing the drone, but he loses communication with control. As he approaches the drone, he nearly falls but uses a fallen beam as a bridge. He reaches the signal source and finds the beacon, but no drone. Scavengers capture him, but he shoots their rope and frees himself. He sees a few scavengers and shoots at them, but they suddenly pull away the beam. Jack jumps over the gap as the scavengers close in. Safely on the other side, he locks himself to his rope and starts pulling himself up, but someone shoots and breaks it, causing him to plummet back into the sinkhole. Just as all seems lost, a drone appears, scanning and blasting the area, terminating the scavengers. Drone 166 scans Jack again, initially not recognizing his ID. Jack finds a book on the ground and takes it with him. Upon reaching the top, he sees that the scavengers have stolen his bike. Jack manages to get home, and while showering, he has another memory of New York. As he repairs a drone, he decides to examine the book, but Victoria interrupts him while preparing lunch as the sun sets. Jack gives her flowers he has been carrying, but she throws them out, worried they might contain toxins. During dinner, he tells her that the scavengers were trying to capture him, not kill him. Victoria goes to their outdoor pool, undresses, and jumps in. Jack follows her, but hesitates to enter immediately. He asks her to come down to the ground with him someday before they leave. She pulls him into the pool, and they kiss and submerge. Jack has another vision of the woman from his dreams. He wakes up in bed to see a massive explosion in the distance. Investigating, he discovers that one of the hydro rigs has exploded, suspecting that the scavengers have weaponized a drone. Finding a rogue signal being diverted off-planet, he tracks it to the top of the Empire State Building. Entering on foot, he sees something from his dream and hears a beacon. Reaching it, the beacon uses the building as an antenna, and Victoria decrypts the information, revealing coordinates in the middle of nowhere. Jack shuts it down and continues his rounds, coming dangerously close to the radiation border. Before heading home, he does a perimeter check and goes off comm. Jack enters a beautiful ravine and lands his vessel next to a house by a lake. He turns on the lights, playing a Led Zeppelin record. He enjoys the place, reflecting on how much he will miss it when they leave. He falls asleep on the grass, dreaming again about the woman on the Empire State Building. Jack spots an unknown object falling from the sky and immediately sets off to investigate. Victoria provides the coordinates, noting it landed on the beacon coordinates. She alerts him that the mission is nearly offline and updates them on the situation. Sally advises Jack to stand down, as drones have already been dispatched, but Jack defies the order and continues. Upon arrival, he notices the object resembles a pre-war human artifact. Landing at the site, he discovers hibernation pods containing human survivors. He informs Victoria that there are 5 humans. The last pod he checks contains the woman from his dreams. Suddenly, drones appear and begin destroying the pods. Jack orders them to stop, but Drone 166 prepares to engage him. It identifies Jack but still attempts to terminate the pod. Jack disables the drone to protect the pod. Scavengers are observing his actions. Jack barely manages to land the vessel and drags the pod out. Victoria opens the door and they access the pod. She instructs Jack to get the med kit and mentions they need to report the incident, but Jack warns her about the drones. The woman in the pod wakes up suddenly, vomiting breathing fluid, and collapses into Jack's arms, calling him by name. Once awake, she asks where she is. Victoria introduces herself and Jack. The woman, named Julia, is confused when told about the crash and her crew. She asks how long she has been asleep, and Jack reveals it's been 60 years. They have lunch together, and Jack questions her about the beacon and her mission. Julia says she needs to retrieve the flight recorder from her ship. Victoria warns her that Earth has changed significantly in 60 years, mentioning an alien invasion and that the rest of humanity is either on Saturn or in a space station preparing to leave. Julia notices them holding hands and laughs, but Victoria remains wary of her. Later, Jack and Victoria discuss Julia, and Victoria expresses a desire for her to leave. Jack questions Victoria about her memories from before the mission and whether she remembers Julia. Victoria, irritated, reminds him that a scavenger beacon led to Julia's crash and that the scavengers have discovered their home. Later, Julia is awake when Jack joins her and informs her that Victoria plans to report her presence to the TET, which will send someone to retrieve her. Julia insists they retrieve the flight recorder from her ship, believing they need to understand what happened. As they prepare to leave, Victoria warns Jack that she can't protect him. Upon arriving at the crash site, Victoria monitors them through the vessel's camera. Julia sees the pods, and Jack explains he couldn't save the others. Victoria notices someone on the monitors and tries to alert them, but Julia is focused on finding the recorder. She eventually finds it just as scavengers attack, knocking Jack out and taking them both captive. The next day, the vessel returns to Victoria, who contacts the mission but doesn't reveal the full extent of what happened, only mentioning Jack went off comms and requesting a drone to scout his last known location. Jack awakens, restrained and with a light in his face, hearing a voice recite lines from a book he previously found. A man, Beach, emerges from the darkness, commenting on Jack's curiosity. Jack insists they won't get anything from him, as his memory is wiped. Beach questions if Jack has truly encountered a scavenger, been to the radiation zone, or asked too many questions. The lights reveal a building full of humans. Beach explains that they are just humans hiding from drones programmed to kill them. Beach asks why Jack protected Julia from a drone, to which Jack responds that anyone would have done the same. Sykes approaches, warning that a drone will track Jack. They release Jack from his restraints. Meanwhile, Victoria checks tracking data with Sally, confirming it's Jack. Beach shows Jack their ground facility and reveals they brought down Julia's ship for its reactor. Beach explains that the reactor, along with scavenged drone fuel cells, can power a nuclear bomb. They have a drone to carry it, but only Jack can access it. Simultaneously, the drone tracks Jack's DNA to their location. Beach asks Jack to program the drone to deliver the nuke to the TT's center and end the war. Jack refuses, leading Sykes to shoot him. They bring Julia in and threaten Jack with her life. Suddenly, an alarm sounds, signaling the arrival of an incoming drone. It reaches the hiding place and scans the area. The scavengers try to take it down, but it kills a few of them until Sykes manages to destroy it. Victoria and the mission confirm the drone has gone offline, and Victoria requests 2 additional drones. Meanwhile, Jack is telling Beach the same thing. The scavengers decide to let them go. Before they leave, Beach tells Jack he can find the truth in one of the radiation zones. Jack and Julia reach the Empire State Building. Jack sends a message to Victoria, informing her that he is alive, prompting her to notify the mission and call off the other drones. Victoria sends the vessel to Jack. While waiting, Jack asks Julia who she really is. Julia explains that her mission was a research flight to Titan. However, 6 weeks before launch, their sensors detected an alien object, and they were reassigned to investigate it. The alien object was the TT. She reveals that she is actually Jack's wife, and that he is not who he thinks he is. Julia recounts that he proposed to her at the very spot they are standing. Jack remembers parts of it but remains somewhat confused. The vessel arrives and Victoria sees them embracing. They return home, but Victoria refuses to let them inside. Jack insists they need to leave and explains that Julia is his wife. Despite Jack's protests, Victoria informs the TET about Julia. Suddenly the door opens, and one of the home drones activates. Jack urges Victoria to come with them, but she refuses to believe him and doesn't want to go. The drone kills her and then turns on Jack, but Julia manages to destroy it. Jack finally communicates with the TT, which tells him it wants to bring him and Julia in for a new mission. They leave home, and the TT sends drones after them. They engage in a long and grueling chase, with Jack leading them into a storm to get struck by lightning. The lightning momentarily halts the drones, but they persist. Jack hides the vessel behind a waterfall, causing the drones to miss it. He then destroys 2 drones from behind. The last drone nearly crashes their ship, but Jack outmaneuvers and destroys it. However, Drone 166 follows and pushes them into the radiation zone, destroying their ship. Jack and Julia pull the escape lever and are stranded. Hearing a distant drone, Jack investigates and sees another vessel like his own land nearby. Through his scope, he can't see the pilot, so he gets closer and discovers the pilot is himself. The other Jack orders him to drop his weapon. Julia appears, triggering the other Jack's memories of her. The 2 Jacks fight, with Jack 49 incapacitating Jack 52. Drone 1686 reactivates, but Jack 49 quickly disables it. He calls for Julia and realizes she's been shot. Jack carries her to safety, restrains Jack 52, and takes his vessel to Jack 52's home. Inside, he notices everything is the same. He grabs the medkit, and Victoria 52 catches him, but he convinces her that he's her Jack. However, she won't join him on the ground. Returning, Jack 49 sees Jack 52 has escaped. He treats Julia's wounds and takes her to his lakeside house. When Julia wakes up, healed, she explores and plays Jack's favorite record. She joins him outside, where Jack admits he's not the original, but has loved her for as long as he can remember. Julia reassures him that his memories define him. The next morning, Jack prepares to help Beach, with Julia accompanying him. At the hiding place, Beach is pleased they are aiding the plan. Meanwhile, Tet reviews footage of Jack and sends 3 drones after them. Jack programs the drone while Beach recounts the history, from the moon's destruction and human starvation to the TET invasion with Jack Harper clones. Beach explains that Teet is a brilliant machine feeding on planetary energy. He recalls seeing Jack pick up a book and save Julia, sparking hope that Jack might be different and able to help. Jack activates the drone, and Beach expresses a desire to see Tet's reaction to the nuke. It's a one-way trip, but worth it. The scavengers prepare the drone for its final mission and open the gates, but the 3 TT drones are already there. They attack, causing havoc. Despite everyone fighting back, the drones overpower many humans. Beach destroys one drone, but not before it injures him and damages the drone carrying the nuke. Sykes takes out the second drone, and Jack destroys the third. Realizing their plan has failed, Julia devises a new one. She suggests using a pod to carry the nuke since Tet asked Jack to bring her up. They say goodbye in front of a painting that reminds her of home. They prepare a pod with the explosive device, and Jack places Julia inside, telling her to dream of them before closing the pod. He drags it to his vessel and sets a course for Tet. During the flight, Jack listens to the recording from the ship and remembers everything. He recalls being the commander of the ship, with Sally as the actual NASA mission control during that mission, and Victoria as his co-pilot. The rest of the crew, including Julia, were in hibernation. As Jack approaches Tet in the present, he tells it he's bringing the survivor, and Tet grants him entry. In his memory, Jack and his crew approach Tet, but realizing the object is pulling them in, Jack decides to eject the hibernation module. He and Victoria are taken into Tet. In the present, Jack enters Tet, which sends drones at him, but he convinces it to let him get closer. On the way to Tet's control, he sees numerous clones of himself and Victoria. Tet welcomes him home as he lands. He removes the pod and opens it, revealing Beach inside. Meanwhile, Julia's pod opens, and she wakes up at the house by the lake, unaware Jack would take her there. Simultaneously, drones approach the surviving humans. Back in Tet, Jack and Beach activate the nuke, destroying Tet and all its drones. Sykes and Julia witness the explosion. 3 years later, Julia lives in the house with her daughter. Suddenly, the rest of the survivors appear at the lake, and Jack 52 arrives with them. Jack has finally come home to his wife and child.